Hello everyone and welcome to the What's New webinar for our build 8844, which is the spring release. Today is going to be a short and sweet webinar. We have a few features, not too many, but they are very powerful features that I believe will help everyone increase their efficiency and upgrade their workflow. So the main features are related to walls. I'm just gonna jump in my plan view here from my sample file. And the first feature available is actually a multi-layer feature. So this is for MWF multi-layer panels. And it will give you now the ability of batch selecting all of your panels. And you will be able to easily modify them instead of going one by one. So for example, I'm going to mass select these few panels here. So they are multi-layer panels. And if I come here to operations, wall properties. So before to enter wall properties and make any modifications, we had to select just one panel. Now we can actually select multiple panels. And once we get in the wall properties, we'll see that you have a list here available of the panels you've selected. It will show you per wall type. So in that case, I've selected 3 wall types here. And within those wall types, I have these panels created. So let's say, for example, if I'd like to modify panel 11, I could highlight panel 11. I could from here maybe go ahead and add templates for the layers that I still don't have anything. So let's say for the finish, for the gypsum, I could add the template here. Or I could modify something, create an instance. So let me just unlock the structural layer. And then if I go here to edit, I will go and within the properties of that panel, and I can modify anything from here. So let's say we're going to do something very simple and just modify the stud spacing, for example. So that would be a change in my panel 11. And if I go ahead and select panel 12, I could do the same. I could make modifications. I could come here, unlock, and maybe go to properties again. And maybe I could also change something here. So let's say again the stud spacing. So it's just a simple change so we can see and visualize this. So you could go ahead and do that. You don't have to keep closing, clicking OK, regenerating each panel and then entering the other panel and so on. So you can just batch select and you would see all of those here in the list and you will be able to handle them and modify them from this dialog box. And here at the bottom, you will see you have the ability to also say all panels. So select all panels. You can also say all layers is here. And to expand, because by default they are closed like this. So if you click to expand, it will just automatically expand all of the wall types and you will see all the panels. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I did modify 2 panels there, so they are going to suffer modifications. And the rest of the panels will remain as it is. So we modified panel 12 and 11. For panel 11, I modified the stud spacing to be 1 foot. And then for this panel here, it's modified to be 110, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Now moving on to the second feature, we've added the ability of pointing to specific folders where you would have your template saved or specific configuration saved. So you can save that path and you can also import into the project. So if we go here to MWF menu, and it's going to be the last option, template locations import. So here, by default, you're going to see everything blank in the first time. So I'm just going to clear. You have an option here to clear the path as well. So this is what you would see by default once you open this up the first time. And from here, you could point to specific folder locations where you would have your specific settings saved. So for example, the structural templates, you can, let's say you have your templates and you exported them from a file and you want to save them at a location in your computer. So you can just save anywhere in your computer at a specific folder, and then you can just point to that folder here. So let's say if I highlight template, structural templates, I can go and click on Browse, and I can just go ahead and point to any location in my computer. And once you've selected the folder, you can just go ahead and hit Select Folder, and then you will save that path to your template. And I can do the same for the other options as well. So in the end, you can have the location pointing to where you have your structural template saved, your nail line patterns, your secondary template, sheeting templates, and your subassembly catalogs. It doesn't have to be all in the same location. Again, that's why it's separate. You could have potentially have them saved in different folders, and then you can just point to those folders. Each one of them, they could be in different locations, so that's okay as well. For the ones, let's say if I don't use subassembly catalogs, you can just leave it blank. You don't have to assign a specific path. And the other thing that you can do is just keep that saved in the project. Let's say I don't want to import just yet. I just want to point to that direction and have that saved. You can just click OK, and you would have that location saved in your project. So once I go back in there, MWF template locations import, I can see that I have the path here saved. If you do wish to import the settings that you have on that specific folder, you can just click on import. I'm not going to do that because I don't actually have anything there. But if it's pointing to the correct folder and you do have the settings for that specific template, you can just go ahead and click import, and then it would just import them into your project. Now for the third feature, that one is a change that we made in the punch holes options within the horizontals command. And all of these features, they work for any product, so it can work for wood or metal. So if you have Pro Wood, Pro Metal, or Advanced Metal, they work for all of those MWF products. I'm just gonna move on to an LGS panel because I did already set up, so we can take a look here. I believe it's this panel. Yes. So I've already added some punches there. Let me just quickly regenerate this panel. I believe we're missing a stud. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have this panel here where I've added what could be maybe a CRC channel, and then we have the slot holes going through the panel. And if I take a look at these settings here, if I select my panel and go to Properties, we're going to go to Miscellaneous tab, and these were added with the Horizontals command. So if I come here to Horizontals, these are the settings that are being used in this particular panel. So as you can see, I have a slot hole also assigned to it. And before, if the client was using this option here, you wouldn't be able to modify how those punches are being placed. So it would just take the geometry of the horizontal family that you were using and just place the holes at usually at the center. So it would also depend on the parameters that you had on the family type you were using for the horizontal or blocking. Now we actually have an option to control that a little bit better. So if you need to add an offset, you're able to add that offset here. You can either add an elevation or a lateral offset in that case. So right now, it's by default, I don't have any offset. So as you can see here behind my dialog box, it is punching at the center of my CRC channel. So let's say I want to move those punches a little bit down. So in that case, I could use the elevation offset, and I can say Maybe I want to lower that half an inch, for example. I'm gonna put minus because I believe that will bring it down. If you set it to a positive value, it will go up. So I'm just gonna take my horizontal settings and I'm gonna hit update. Then I'm gonna hit close and OK. And as you can see, it did move half an inch down. Maybe I'm gonna add an inch so it's a bit more visible. So let me just do a Control Z here. And let me go back there to properties and horizontals. So let's do an inch. Update. And I'm going to close here and okay, now it's more visible that it did move 1 inch. So that's how you would control. So again, if you set up a negative value, it will go down, a positive value will go up, and lateral will be moving this laterally in the panel. So just as an example here, although I don't think this would be used too much, I think the elevation offset might be the one that is used the most. But still, if you need to, for any given reason, if you need to move that laterally a little bit, I'm just gonna put 1 inch also to, so we can really see. Doesn't have to be that much, but in case you need to adjust for any reason laterally, so we're gonna add 1 inch, hit update, and click OK. So again, it would also move one inch. So again, it's just so you can control this a little bit better. Also, depending on the family and the parameters you have, maybe sometimes it could come out a little bit off. And in that case, because the punches are referring that particular member to get placed within the horizontals command, you might have to do a little adjustment in the whole series, and now you're actually able to do that within the horizontals command. Let me just do a Control Z so it looks nice. It doesn't look off center. But yeah, just to demonstrate what you could do with these two new options. And now moving on to subassemblies. So we do have two new options for subassemblies. The first one for the subassemblies catalogs. So you can actually modify the tag now. If I come here to settings and I go to subassembly catalogs. So this is just for people who actually use these catalogs and they use subassemblies and they save those subassemblies into custom catalogs. If that's the case, we all know that you can go ahead and create new catalogs, but now you can actually also, let me say if I create a new one here, you can actually modify the tag for that particular catalog. So it doesn't have to be SA, it could be something else, could be whatever you prefer. So let's say if I say as a test, that will be the tag for that particular catalog. And I can just close here, hit save. And one thing that we can demonstrate is we're going to use also another feature to demonstrate this. Within the default marker, we're going to have now an option to add those members as a subassembly. We already had that option, but now you're actually able to assign it to a catalog. Before we wouldn't be able to assign to a catalog. So if we come here to look at the, for example, LGS default non-bearing. So it could either be the LGS one or the wood one, okay? I'm just going to duplicate this guy. Let's say this one is LGS webinar default marker. So again, just a reminder that it's the best practice, always duplicate the default and leave the default as is. So we're gonna use this one here. And within those options, we did have a make into subassembly. It was in this list here in the first list of settings that we see. Now it has been moved outside and it's here at the bottom. As you can see, make into a subassembly. You can just check off this option. That will make the full framing elements around your opening into a subassembly. So that would be header, kings and jacks if you have them, and sill as well if you are applying that to a window. So any element that is created with this marker will be part of that subassembly. And now, if you are using this option, you can also assign a specific subassembly catalog. Before we wouldn't be able to do that. We were not able because we had only the option to make into a subassembly, but it wouldn't allow you to assign to any catalogs unless you use the other option, which was individual subassemblies for left kings and jacks and right kings and jacks. That we had that before, but now we have the option to do that for the entire opening as well. So let's say I'm just going to select the catalog that we've created, the test one, and I'm gonna hit OK here just to save my marker. And now what we want to do is just assign that to an opening. So let's go back to our plan view. And let's say if we use this panel here, I'm just going to assign it to this door. So we're going to come here to markers, apply opening type, and we're going to use the LGS webinar opening marker. And let me just select this panel. Let's just isolate that panel. And I'm just going to regenerate this. Perfect. I'm just going to hide this door and let's take a look. Let's see, I didn't modify anything, so as you can see, it's a very simple framing. I just have a header and kings. So I just want to check, as you can see here, I do have my BIMSF subassembly tag parameter. So they are all part of the same subassembly. It's panel 10 subassembly 1. There it is. And now to be able to see the custom tag that we've modified in the subassembly catalogs. So again, if I come back to my subassembly catalogs, the test catalog is set up to be as a test for my tag. So the location we would see this would be when we generate shop drawings. So you would have to set up your shop drawings, your schedules, and the labeling method correctly so you could see that information. Here, when we select the member, we only see, as we just saw again, it shows that we do have the BIMSF subassembly parameter, and it's telling us that this is subassembly number 1 for my panel 10. Now, if we go to our shop drawing settings, so again, I already have the settings here. One thing you would have to also make sure to run is the add schedule label. So that would be the old, it was called member distribution before. We recently changed it as well and added here to the drop down of the drawings operations, but it's the same command. As you can see here, you can run strategy type A that would give the labels for all of your members and also the subassemblies. So I already did that. As you can see, we also have the BIMSF schedule label here assigned. And this is also something that causes a little bit of confusion sometimes because we do have the schedule label for the individual members, but we can also have the ability of showing in the schedules the overall tag for that subassembly. So for each individual members, they do have a specific subassembly, schedule label assigned to it. So this one is C2. This one I believe will also be C2 because it's the same length and same description. This guy here, the cripple, C1. So they do have individual schedule label tags that you can also use in the shop drawings. But if you want to have one tag for the entire subassembly, this is when you would add the options there in your shop drawings to label the subassemblies as well. So if we come here to Wall Drawings Manager, if I double click in my settings, I've created an elevation view for this panel, and this elevation view was created by using the subassembly panel framing elevation. So because that one will allow you to see the subassembly in the panel. So if I double click in this option and I go to view settings again, if I scroll down, I do have this subassembly shading option that I can enable. I could add a color and a pattern if I like. Maybe this one. So this will highlight the subassembly so you will know where it is in the panel. Okay, so usually if you're dealing with subassemblies, that would be the best option for you to generate the elevation view. So again, it's just this option. It will give you the exact same settings as the elevation view plus the option to highlight and add a color and a pattern to the subassembly members. And then, let me just go back in the settings. For the labeling, you do want to select the label panels, label panel members by method, and you do want to select the by schedule label method. And if you see here at the bottom, you would have this option to use subassembly schedule label. So that would tag your subassembly as well. So you could choose to uncheck this and have only the labels for individual members. So like the ones we saw, if I select a member that belongs to a subassembly, it does also have a a schedule label assigned to it that is individual to that member. It's not for the subassembly. So you could use those as well. But if you do want to tag the entire subassembly, you would check off this option. And then for the schedules, I did assign two of them in my sheet layout. The first one is the overall framing cut list. So that one will give you the labeling for individual members plus whatever else you would like to see. I kept it very simple, just the type, reported length, and count, and that's it. So that would give you the schedule label for individual members in your panel. And if I go ahead and create one for the subassembly, and oops, let me just rename this. There you go. So this one was created with, if I go here to the little plus sign, it was created with this bill of material by schedule label combined type A. That one will give you the schedule label for the overall subassembly. And any other members in the panel will just be labeled individually as usual, but the subassembly members will be tagged as one. So if I double click in this one, it's super simple. I just need to make sure to also add the schedule label method here. So this is what I want to see. The rest, it's up to you, whatever you would like to show as well. Just keep in mind that this one, it's not a Revit schedule. This one is created with MWF and it's a view. It's not an actual schedule. So just keep that in mind. And that's why in the end, it might be good to have the both of them, just in case you need to modify something very quick. Just don't forget that if you're using this one, you have to recreate the chop drawings. It's not a live schedule, it's just a view. So these are my settings. If I go ahead and select my panel, and I'm gonna go and run shop drawings again for this panel. And as you can see here in the elevation view, you do have the subassembly highlighted with the color that I specified and also the pattern. Uh, Sometimes you may have to move this a little bit, but this is the tag for the entire subassembly. This is where we set up the tagging in the subassemblies catalog. So I've added as a test. So that's how it's tagging the subassembly. If I look at this schedule here, you will see that I don't have the SA test tag. I do have the C1, C2, and so on. So those are for the individual members. Again, like for example, this one belongs to SA task, but it's also an individual member. And for the individual tag, it's a C2 member. So that will be this guy here. So we have two, which is both kings. So that it's for my individual members. But if I look here at the bottom, this is the schedule that was created with the second option that I showed, the subassembly combined schedule. And for this one, we do have the individual members that do not belong to a subassembly, but all the members that belong to this subassembly specifically will be tagged with that specific schedule label, in that case as a test. So that's how you could show in your schedule, in your in your shop drawings, your subassembly views and also add them in the schedules. Now, last one for our walls is an option within the modular command, and it's also related to shop drawings. So what I did here is I just created a simple group and I've created some panels. And I do have another group here. I'm gonna keep it simple so it doesn't take too long to generate. So I'm just gonna take this group and we're just going to copy members on all identical groups. In this case, it's just this one in this project. So let's go ahead and copy members on all identical groups. And we're going to say to keep the panel numbering to be same as original. You're gonna give a little, it's going to give you a little warning here explaining, but overall, what we're gonna, what you're going to see with this option is you're just going to see the same panel number for identical panels. So you will notice that this one is mirrored, but panel 6 will be panel 6 here, panel 7 will be this panel, and so on. So you're not going to keep numbering the panels. They are going to be identical, and the numbering will also be identical. So as you can see, the number and the prefix, everything is the same. So the label for all of those panels are the same, which means that you could potentially create just one shop drawing. And the new feature now refers to the ability of having the number of panels that have that same identical label. So if I take, for example, panel 8, I'm going to take panel 8 and 9 as an example. So panel 8 and 9, and I'm going to run shop drawings for them. Now it's going to give you an error in case you don't have subassemblies. We do have that assigned because we ran for the other panel where we have subassemblies. For these two panels, we don't have it, so that's why I'm getting this warning. But that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not gonna generate the drawing. It's just telling you that that field couldn't be created because we don't have subassemblies. But if I scroll down here, this is what I wanted to show you. As you can see, for panel 8, I have in between brackets number 2, which means that for that particular panel, I have two of them. So this drawing refers to two panels in my project. So it's telling me that I actually have a duplicate. I have an identical panel. And I don't have to keep creating several drawings, two separate drawings for that because they are identical. So it's just telling us that these guys are identical and I have two panels like that in my project. If you go in the drawing itself, you will also see that information here at the bottom. So panel 8 in between brackets, I have two. So I have two panels like this in my project. And same for panel 9. We'll also have two of them. So just make sure if you're using this method that they are indeed identical because again, it will just generate one drawing and it will show in between brackets that you how many panels like that you have in the project. So everything else remains the same. The workflow for modular remains the same. Everything is the same. It's just that update to show how many panels we have that it's now automatic. So that's the new feature, and it's going to be very helpful for people who use the modular command. And the last feature, this one refers to floors. It's just a quick update. So I do have a floor panel here. I'm just going to isolate that. Oops. Let me just move into the floors module. And I just want to select all members from that panel. Okay. So here we have our floor panel. And as you can see, it does have a few blocking. So this blocking was added with the marker lines. Again, with floor panels or ceiling panels, we can only generate blocking or punches with marker lines. So before, we wouldn't be able to use any edit commands with these guys that are generated with marker lines. And now you can actually use either move generated or edits one to make small modifications here, and it will remain in the after regeneration. So let's say if I take one of these blockings and I'll go here to my edits and I'm going to select the move generated command, and let's say we're just going to add a lateral offset. So just a reminder, running offset refers to the direction of the panel, so it will still be like this. And lateral offset will go laterally. So in that case, in case you want to move the blocking a little bit, you would use this option. So let's say if we move it 10 inches and I hit OK. So it moved my blocking for any reason. So let's say you need to do a small edit, and for any reason you need to modify and move those elements a little bit, you can do that manually. And once I regenerate the panel, it will just remain there in the custom location. So this wasn't supported before. It would just revert back every time you try to use edits one or move generated. It wouldn't allow you to modify anything generated with marker lines. So now you're actually able to do that, and it makes a little bit easier in case you need to customize a specific location there or you need to move elements around a little bit. And that's our last feature. So that's pretty much it for the spring release for the build 8844. And we can take a look at the questions now in case anyone has any questions. And if you don't have any questions right now, we are always available on support or by sending an email, and we'll be happy to reach out and either schedule a quick call or just reply by email to answer your questions.